Jason Gilbo here, J Gilbo 11, taking a look at pitching on tonight's 10-game slate. Got ourselves a Coors game, so take that into consideration here as we go through it. First one, Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, Jameson Taillon versus Rookie Davis. Rookie Davis, not a guy I have any interest in here tonight. I know he's cheap, but not someone I'm really looking to use. And Jameson Taillon, on the other hand, I do like him quite a bit here. Decent spot. I mean, it was very solid against Boston in his opener here in 2017. Just allowed 8 base runners over 7 innings, worked a ton of ground balls, had 6 strikeouts, was kind of a surprise. He didn't miss a ton of bats, and he's not going to just be a dominant right-handed arm, but a 20% strikeout rate still viable. It's what we had from him last year. It's what you're probably going to get. He did keep left-handers at bay, 308 WOBA, allowed 287 WOBAs to righties. You look at Taillon, I mean, in a good spot against the Cincinnati offense that ranks 23rd in WOBA on the road going back to last year, also 19th against right-handed pitching. So I definitely don't mind Taillon. He's at a reasonable price. He's a cash game and a GPP option because you can fit some bats in there with him. So, you know, in the 8K range on both sides, I definitely don't mind using him. And like I said, Rookie Davis, not a guy that I'm looking to use. Taillon should be able to go out and pick up a win as well. Pittsburgh minus 180 favorites. Quality start should be in line for FanDuel. Definitely like him. Cardinals, Nationals, Gio Gonzalez versus Lance Lynn. I don't have a lot of interest in either of these guys. Lance Lynn's a guy who's still working his way back from injury. Tough line to kind of come back and get things in the groove with. Staying away for the meantime. Gio Gonzalez, a little too expensive for my taste on FanDuel, 8,900. 8,100 on DraftKings, you might be able to get away with using him. You do look at this Cardinals team. They were middle of the road against lefties last year. They do bring a couple of right-handed bats that do it lefties well to the table, but that's pretty much it. I still think this is a slightly overrated offense. So Gonzalez, I think he's been trending downwards for the last few years. You look at him, I mean, I'm not particularly thrilled with the strikeout rate. 22.5%. You know, for that price, I want a little bit more. Cardinals don't strike out a ton. You do look, I mean, does have a reasonable SIERA. Hard contact rate was up last year. Definitely just a GPP arm at the most. Mets and Phillies, Matt Harvey versus Clay Buchholz. Clay Buchholz, no thanks. This guy struggles way too much with left-handed hitters for me to use against a lefty-heavy team. Matt Harvey on the other side, you know, looking at his stats against the Braves, averaged about 94 miles per hour on his fastball. He did not miss many bats, 7.8% swing strike rate, was around the zone, didn't walk anyone, which you like to see. Secondary pitches in the past have really been able to kind of dial up a lot of swings and misses. That hasn't been the case this year. Game sample size, but even looking back at last year, I mean, Harvey was not the guy that we saw before. You do look at the Phillies, I mean, obviously dating back to last year, 29th in WOBA against right-handed pitching, 23.1% strikeout rate. So, you know, if the strikeout rate holds this year, it gives a little bit of a bump to Harvey. Harvey's kind of site dependent. I mean, I like him as an SP2 on DraftKings and all formats. FanDuel, I think you can look at the GPP slate because for me, I mean, one, the price is a little bit higher than he was last time out. That I don't love at 8,700. I mean, this guy isn't going to go deep into games anymore. I mean, we're basically seeing him push about 6 innings a start right now. So I think he's okay. I think he's a fairly safe play, but also I think there is still somewhat of a risk. And I think the Phillies are actually kind of a sneaky offense this year and a little bit deeper with the addition of guys like Howie Kendrick. I know it doesn't look like much, but it is a little bit more solidified bat in the front of the order, and Michael Saunders as well. So I don't think they're going to be as bad as last year, but this is still an average offense at best. So I do like Harvey. I do think he's able to pick up a win here, but it's not as safe as you might think. Milwaukee and Toronto, Jay Happ versus Willie Peralta. Targeting lefties against the Brewers is kind of a boomer bust thing because, one, you look at them last year, 3.31 WOBA, which ranked 6th in the majors. Their power numbers are also very solid, 24.7% strikeout rate, though. You do look at Happ. This guy was an overperformer last year, average ground ball rate, average home run rate, didn't strike out a ton of guys, didn't allow a hard contact rate that was extremely high or jumped off the boards at you. Hap, I just think there are better arms to target on this day. I mean, I'm okay with it in the deep shot and the GPPs. Definitely not a cash game guy. And on the other side, Willie Peralta, I'm not looking to use him to get a good start against Colorado at home. Larger sample size, I doubt he just all of a sudden turns things around this year. He's just been bad for far too long for me to even really consider. No thanks. Braves of Miami, Bartolo Colon, Dan Straley. This one I have basically no interest in these guys. I know it's a big, spacious ballpark. I know Colon and Straley, could go out there and toss about 5 or 6 innings, allow about 2 or 3 earned runs. If I want to pay for Straley or Bartolo Colon, I want them to be basically cheaper. Mid 7K on FanDuel, not what I'm looking at. Bartolo Colon 6'6", sure, you can make a case for. If this guy's just going to basically go out there and do what he usually does, I'm okay with it. If you're looking to fit some bats in, Straley, even against a Braves offense, I'm not particularly thrilled with using him. Baltimore and Boston, Drew Pomeranz, Dylan Bundy. We'll talk about Bundy here first. This guy obviously struck out 8 in his opener, went 7 innings, allowed 1 earned run. Obviously, terrific stuff. The one thing that Bundy does well is he does miss a ton of bats. And you look at him, I'm a really high ceiling, but not a guy that I'm looking at for cash games. On the road last year, allowed a 372 WOBA. Is still around a 330 WOBA mark to right-handers and left-handers. Home runs were also an issue. Look at Boston. I mean, they had a really strong numbers against Bundy last year in a couple of starts and a couple of innings of relief, which does concern me. Their lineup is certainly going to get a lot better here as they get Mookie Betts, Hanley, Ramirez, and Bogarts back tonight. So that definitely gives them an added addition. I'm not going to be personally chasing his last game. I think Bundy is certainly an above average right-hander. Coming into this year was definitely not his stuff. It was, is he going to be able to stay healthy? He's just a high-risk GPP option at best. If you're looking to stack bats, you can still do it with him because he's very cheap. As far as Drew Pomeranz go, this guy's, the hard contact rate went up about 6%. Near coming from San Diego to Boston, which that's a big red flag for this guy who was, fairly solid. Didn't allow a ton of home runs, allowed 14 since coming to Boston. Yes, the park factors, yes, the division also, enhances those numbers, but Pomeranz just one. I don't think it's there right now. I'm not even sure if he's really healthy. So stay away for the meantime. If he has a decent outing, so be it. I'm not going after that one. San Diego, Colorado, Antonio Senzatella, Jared Weaver. No thanks for either of those guys. I know we just saw a 5-1 ball game. We actually haven't seen a big course breakout yet, really. So I know it's when it's coming. And these obviously arms are not to go. And course, I mean, Jared Weaver's the guy who is throwing about 70 miles per hour these days. And I know this Padres offense is certainly bad, but Senzatella's not the guy that I'm looking to really use here. Rangers and Angels, Cole Hamels, Tyler Skaggs. I'm not willing to call Hamels the ace of the slate, but he's certainly one of the better, more consistent arms, especially when you look at him on the road last year. 274 WOBA allowed compared to a 343 WOBA. At home, ERA dropped by about 2 runs. Strikeout rate, fairly average last year, slightly above average, you could say. 12.2% swinging strike rate. You look at this Angels team, 19th in WOBA, 23rd in ISO, 24th in hard contact rate against left-handed pitching. I mean, it's basically all you have to look at here. This current Angels roster is 48 for 226, 21% strikeout rate. They don't strike out a ton, but you can probably bank on Hamels to have about 5 or 6 strikeouts in this one. The one issue you have with Hamels is the price tags going on tonight's slate. So it's like, do I really want to pay up for a guy who doesn't really have that monster upside as a pitcher? And that's the one kind of gripe I have with him tonight. So Hamels definitely not a must play. I kind of rather spend down that mid range to get some bats in. As far as Skaggs goes on the other side, I think he's a talented pitcher. I think he could have a quality start tonight, but not someone that's really on my radar. Houston, Seattle, Ariel Miranda, Joe Musgrove. Sorry, neither of these guys I'm particularly thrilled with. Good ballpark here in Safeco. 2 offenses that have kind of scuffled out of the gates here, but still neither one of these guys really intrigues me. Arizona, San Francisco, though, Jeff Samardzija versus Robbie Ray. Buster Posey's out of the lineup. Up to a great start anyway. Robbie Ray certainly in play. I mean, played very well outside side of Chase Field last year. You look at Robbie Ray. I mean, best Sierra on the slate. Um, does miss a lot of bats. 11.6% swinging strike rate, 28% strikeout rate, dating back to last year. So I mean, Ray definitely has some strikeout upside. I mean, he's shown it against Arizona or against San Francisco before. So I don't mind using him in a GPP. Justin Marja, on the other hand, is definitely a guy you can look at as well. This guy, home runs were an issue last year, but he did kind of tone it down at home. I mean, was missing a ton of bats until that sixth inning. 14.4% swinging strike rate. Good future upside with that, but I mean, 43% hard contact rate in that opener. But I do like him. I mean, tough on right-handers. Jake Lamb, David Peralta might be able to give him problems, but I know this ballpark is certainly going to help with power. The only thing that AT&T Park does enhance is triples. Offense, but they rank 21st in WOBA on the road, so it's not the same offense that they are at Chase Field, which is one thing to note. So both these guys, reasonable options. You can look at Samardzija as kind of an SP2 or GPP option is an SP1, but that's about it. So definitely more returning guy, but if he kind of fits the bill in cash games, I'm okay with using him. AT&T Park, he was a little bit more consistent last year. So that's going to wrap things up here with the pitching pulse. You can check out dailyfantasycafe.com for our great tools and content.